one obvious fact that's not emphasized enough is that Harley Davidson would be out of business completely if it was not for quote unquote outlaw bikers. And nothing could be more obvious. Like the last CEO was a Puma CEO, and what he was doing was selling what you call it quote unquote lifestyle. So what it is, and this has been the thing since probably the late '80s, since the bikes really got way more reliable with the Evo came out. Someone would go down to a dealer, take a loan, and make payments on a bike, and go in a dealer and buy, the jacket that says Harley Davidson, the gloves, and all this stuff. Then all of a sudden, they're part of, the culture, quote unquote. And that is really what's been selling the bikes, because most of the real bikers are too broke to buy a new one, especially today. And it's been that way for a long time. It's been that way back in the 60s. So, now this movie from 1969, Easy Riders, that really, even though the movie itself was like, I don't know what the heck the movie was about. It had some cool bikes riding around the country. But it sold a lot of bikes. It sold a whole lot of bikes. It made, quote unquote, the culture get into more people get into the culture. Now, today, things have changed quite a bit, I think, in my opinion. I'm not familiar with clubs. I mean, I see guys riding around sometimes that are in clubs, but I don't get involved with clubs. But I do know that from my observations from way back, it seemed that, the clubs weren't really that popular. No, they never were popular with the cops, but even probably more so way back. And the elements seemed a little bit different. Today you got bikers today, even in clubs, they got some pretty good money. Because you got to be, because it's an expensive thing to be in a club, not just because of the dues, but because of all the commitments, and you got to have your bike up and running, and you got to go places, and you're paying for hotels. Back in the day, people were sleeping on the ground, they're not going into hotels and stuff. And I could say, but I'm kind of going off a little course here because I haven't even mentioned this. But, I'm not saying anything bad or good or whatever about this, but the style of bikes that the club riders ride today is way different from what it was in the 70s. Nobody in the 70s would be thinking of ride. If they saw these bikes with all this stuff on it, they'd be like, get rid of that saddlebags, get rid of that trunk, cut that fender down. That'd be the first thing they'd be doing. It's a total different thing, and never a windshield or fairing. I mean, almost never, but it's a different thing. Now, I just had to put this guy in here because, I kind of like Sportsters. But if you're this guy, Sportster ain't for you. No way. You crush that thing. But Harley Davidson would be completely out of business if it was not for the real outlaw bikers. Now, I know this kind of situation, it's been a kind of a weird arrangement between Harley Davidson and the biker community because, we're going way back, even to the 60s, because, people were like buying the Harleys because of the outlaw image, and yet Harley didn't want to show that outlaw image in their commercials. Then they started bringing it in a little bit. Now they're openly like selling, quote unquote, a lifestyle. Now, what the hell is that anyway? To me, a lifestyle means you work on a bike, you ride it, and you're not afraid to get out in the weather and stuff, and you get out there with your friends that ride. That's kind of like the essence of where the clubs came from. They're really riding groups. Today's riding groups are kind of like yesterday's clubs. They got really big today, and I don't really know much about what the clubs do, but I could say this, that you shouldn't. To me, it doesn't mean nothing. It's almost like being a fanboy, but. Well, one thing I do like about the Outlaws patch is that it reminds me of the Germans. And they got the Freikorps skull. I like that. I do like that. And, though, what does that mean? I don't know. I kind of like the symbology. And I think that kind of imbues something from the spiritual world into them that provides them some kind of good spiritual luck. I like that. And I'll tell you, that's just my opinion. So... But back in the day, now you look at this bike. This was, it It probably had some extended forks on it, pretty much a stock bike, but it looks like, well, this looks like a hardtail. So this guy, this would have been back probably in, I don't know what that, this is an Evo. So that's, I don't know, this is more recent, but still, probably back in the 80s or something. I don't know. But the thing is, that's what it looks like to me, an Evo. But the thing is, people back then had a more free and easy lifestyle experience with the bike. Today, when I go to rallies or something, man, it's weird. It's like a bunch of people playing all this music I hate, because nuts they're playing like, the old, Black Sabbath or something, some of the cool stuff, Omen, another one. Anyway, but it's like, I don't know, they just bring out these $100,000 bikes and run them down Main Street. You heard about that stuff. See, that's kind of like what Harley is selling today. But I think I'm leading up to something, because I don't think Harley Davidson, to me, it should be the people's motorcycle. Sort of like, remember Volkswagen, people's car. It should be Volks Harley Davidson. That's what it should be. And, I look at, the architecture of the Harley Davidson with an air-cooled motor reminds me of the good old VW, So, now this is a clip from one of the movies. This is back in the days, I don't know, this is 60s. But you notice the bike, even though these I think most of these guys, I think these guys were real Hell's Angels in this movie. But you notice the bikes, there's no baggers on here, man. No windshields and fairings. That's really what it was, man. Now, I think the Hell's Angels, though, today, I think they prefer, like, the Dynas more, with the lightweight big twins. My opinion, if I had a big twin, I would get a Dyna. That's what I would get. Something along that, Super Glide Dyna. But, and I'm kind of going off track here a little bit, because my point is about Harley would be out of business if it was not for the outlaw bikers, quote unquote. They'd be done. They'd be done. And the outlaw bikers actually are the ones that insist on fixing, because it's American made. Boy, once they go non-American, Harley's completely done. They're gone completely. But what happens is, Harley does stupid stuff over the years. But you know what it is? The machinist and the quote-unquote aftermarket, they fix it. They fix the shortcomings. Then people customize the bikes. Then, all this stuff you see with the factory coming out, where they come out with a new model, that's been done in the custom world at one point in time, years before Harley did it. Nothing's been developed in the factory, pretty much, that's custom. It's been done before. Other guys have done it. So, but I think that people would need to get back to the basics, and I don't know what it could be to encourage people to ride. Like, I was at the gym not long ago. I was at the gym yesterday too, but I mean, when I saw this chick, she was like a pretty heavy chick, and she was on this, I think it was a Suzuki scooter, and it was like 450 cc's, and she's pretty big, man. She's a young chick. And I was like talking to her about the bike and stuff, and I was like thinking, well, that bike's going to blow up, because she hadn't changed her oil in like 15,000 miles, she told me. I was like, whoa, really? It's got a bald tire on it. But anyway, not much on the maintenance. But the point is, that's that's more of a biker on that 450 scooter. And I'm not saying about the banditos, but I mean a lot of these guys that go to these rallies that are, coming in there with the $100,000 bikes once a year. She's more of a biker on that 450 scooter than 450cc scooter than a lot of these other ones coming out there. Oh my God, a Harley. Yeah, I hate that stuff. I can't stand it. Now here I'm showing a Beetle. I like these things too. And I know you say, what does this have to do with Harley? But this is the concept. I think the Beetle, this is what the Harley Davidson keeps their models kind of the same, and they call it tradition. Like the Harley rider likes this tradition, nostalgic style, but you know what? I look at it like, why not? I look at it like, take the lesson from the old VW Beetles. They say when we make this car, the good guy put it out back in 1939 when it came out there for the people, right? And he, it was supposed to be an affordable transportation. The guy admired Henry Ford, so this was like the Model A for Germany, right? So he comes out with this thing with Porsche, right? And the idea was to put it in production, and every year not change things just for the change, but change things because you made an improvement. So that's the way it should be. And that's what I think Harley Davidson should do. Now, sometimes what I've seen over the years, every time they improve something, they unimprove something because they make it cheaper in another way. So, I mean, I'm a guy that, I'm sticking with my old-ass freaking 89 Sportster. Now, if I was in a club, like a real club, not like a riding, sort of like a social riding group, whatever the hell you would call this thing, I would definitely, I would have the Sportster as a backup, and I'd probably get a Dyna, because even though I don't know if I would, though, because for me, I'm so used to my 89 Sportster, I could sit on it all day and ride all day in comfort. I don't know why if I get on the 91 Sportster, it's not as comfortable, even though it's almost the same damn thing. I don't know why. Because maybe my butt's been glued to the other one so long. I don't know why. But I guess I really don't. But, that would, to me, makes more sense in my situation why I would get a bigger bike if I was in a club, a real club. But in my situation, I go 250, 300 miles. I could probably go 500 on that Sportster, but I don't really need it. So, but I'm kind of digressing a little bit. But the VW Beetle is kind of like what Harley Davidson should be. Just don't do it for nostalgia. Do it. Your basic design is great. I mean, even if you get the old bikes from the 50s, man, they can go like gazillion miles. Now, here's like the guy, with this guy developed the Beetle, right? So, here they are sitting around admiring it and stuff. And I look at it like this, that's the concept we need for Harley Davidson, the people's motorcycle. Now, we had a German CEO. Seems like he went 180 degrees opposite what people's motorcycle is. And he became, I don't know what you want to call him. I can think of a lot of words, but you fill in the blanks. But that guy is absolutely, I'll never support Harley Davidson at all, man. Even, I buy S&S, Andrews, Fueling, whatever, even RevTech, whatever. I don't get Harley Davidson. I avoid Harley Davidson. And I get Taiwan Ted V-Twin cheaper parts sometimes if it's like some bolt-on sissy bar or some bull crap like that, something that, they can make over there. I wouldn't get no pistons from those guys. But the point is, I don't think that, Harley Davidson with their stupid concept of lifestyle, they don't even know what the hell it is. How could these guys be selling lifestyle when they have absolutely no concept what the hell they're talking about? I mean, it's impossible. So if they really, if this is kind of weird, they should probably take one member from every single 1% club. I mean, the biggest ones, the Outlaws, the Hells Angels, now the Pagans are getting big. They used to be really tiny. The Banditos, the Mongols, the Vagos, or whatever, Sons of Silence, and, I'm leaving out a bunch, but they can make the board even bigger and have them have at least 50% decision making in what's going on, or at least be in charge of something, because the company not only they're just totally have lost touch. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the front of my vest. I don't want to show the back, but actually sometimes even this pisses off people because I got this stuff on there, even that, and my good old skull, So, yeah, I put this because we had flames coming out the bike a couple weeks ago, about 20 feet, and I don't know, they're all laughing their asses off, so they call me that Ghost Rider thing, whatever the hell it is. I don't know what the hell. That shit was screwed up. Anyway, but the thing is, my concept of Harley is it's a transportation tool. It's not, a lifestyle per se. It's a transportation tool, number one. Number one, it should be the people's transportation. I personally think where I would find a club to be extremely useful for anybody that's riding that's in the club is if they got their own machine shop. Now, right now, I got some issues with my old Sportster. I got to do the pistons and stuff. That's not a big deal. I've done the top end. I've done everything on a bike except for balancing flywheels and stuff like that. That's right now. That's beyond my scope of knowledge. I can do everything else though, everything else. And but you know, my concept is, and I said this for a while. Why not? I don't know what the real clubs do, but I would have a machine shop. To me, if I had a bunch of guys get together riding bikes, you know, the number one thing to me is having all the tools and all the knowledge and all the machine shop tools you need to do anything you need to do on those bikes. Period. All of them. Everything. If you got to freaking hone out the connecting rods and install an oversized, crank pin or something like that, you got to balance it up. You got to true the flywheels. You know, you got to pull. I got to press to push the stuff out of the casing and stuff. I do have a bunch of stuff, but I'm probably gonna get the rest of it because I'm getting so pissed off. I'm gonna have to be total freaking independent all the way. To me, that's the most important thing. You know, and when you have that kind of support, you got that kind of knowledge. What I don't like today, now I'm talking about all these guys are like Hell's Angels and stuff. You know, these guys know their bikes inside out. These at this level, they not only ride a lot. I think these guys, I read that these guys will ride an average in a group, on group rides, not talking their individual mileage, 14,000 miles a year, just as a group on average. That's what I read. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's a hell of a lot of riding. As a group, you ain't kidding, man. Now, these guys know their bikes. Now, I'd imagine these guys are there's probably some of these guys in these chapters that got all these tools to do everything too. Who knows? That's the most important thing. But, even if you get together as a small group, number one is having all the support for the bike and, each other. That's the whole game. That's the whole game. A lot of it becomes today, it's almost like cosplay. And that's not what it's about. It's really about when you're getting out there and being true to your word and being reliable, honest, and being a stand-up type person. Not saying that the clubs themselves. I heard they got more political, but I don't know. I mean, that's probably been that way forever, and human nature has never changed over the freaking thousands and thousands of years. So, whatever happened today, I'm sure it happened during the times of the ancient Romans, as far as policies and politics. It's just how it is. But, we have a situation today where we got a bunch of fakes, and running the corporations all out for money, and they are leeching off of what somebody else did. These people, and this was back in the late 80s even, they were buying motorcycles with, making payments and to get into, be a part of this or look like they're a part of it. Now, me personally, I kind of got into motorcycles in a weird way. I like to run a lot. I still like to cardio exercise. I do a lot of that. And I was running, 8 to 10 miles a day, and sometimes on the weekend, 20 to 20 milers every day, right? Once or twice a day. And somebody said to me, go get a bicycle. You can go farther. And I said, nah. And, I thought, I'll try it. So I what it turned out, that was great because I could keep water on there. I got a breeze. So the first week I had the bicycle, I think I did like 75 miles on the first weekend. It was pretty long distance. Then a month later or so, I think, or maybe 2 months later, I did 150 miles in a day on a mountain bike. And I had the cyclometer on it, all like accurate. That's a lot of riding. I think I was riding like 12, 13 hours or something like that. I forgot. All day. And then I was always doing like typically over 100 miles in a day when I had a chance to do this stuff, usually on a weekend. And I just loved riding bicycle, right? And I was a quality bicycle. It wasn't like, the Walmart dime store, Kmart garbage. It was something that had, good good bearings in it and stuff like that. It was like the frame was better. And, it was like it was made to put the mileage on. So I had this cyclometer on it, and I was putting on 3,000 miles a year on a bicycle, which is more than a lot of people put on their Harleys, right? And you know how many hours that is to do that? I mean, it's a lot of hours. So I was on this. I was basically living on the two wheels. I loved it. That's what got me into getting a bike, a motorcycle. That's what got me into it. I really liked the two wheels. So I was into the Harley culture because I've seen a lot of people. They get into the Harley culture. They go to bars. They buy this Harley Davidson this. They start talking up all the lines. And then I also seen a lot of people, as soon as they get a Harley, they do an instant personality change and they start talking the lingo. And I'm like, I know these people for a long time. And all of a sudden they got a bike and all of a sudden now they're talking the lingo. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? I don't even know, you got to complete flip around and stuff. And I'm like, it's weird. I never got into that. But one thing I've always been into is the mechanical side of things. I was pretty heavy into the mechanical side of things with cars, especially Chevys and Mopars before too. And so I understand a lot about the bike just from the beginning. And, a lot of people, I don't consider myself a real pro mechanic, but a lot of other people, they kind of come to me for advice, on different things. But, it's like, I can't, fix something with nothing. No, that's another thing. But the thing is, I got some pretty good knowledge how to keep things going and flowing extra long when they're not supposed to. But I think that the guys today that are riding, not like these guys from way back, they are trying to be like this. That's what it is. And this is not, and if they were not trying to be like this picture, Harley Davidson would not be selling bikes. Now, I think the long-term strategy for Harley Davidson is maybe not, you could have the Outlaw thing. That's cool. But this is kind of like the mold where Harley Davidson should be focused. In other words, the philosophy of Volkswagen, the people's car. Harley Davidson should be the people's motorcycle. That's the focus. I ain't running a company, but right now I go to independent machine shop. I buy parts that are aftermarket from USA guys that are not some big corporation that don't have a CEO and all this kind of crap. They actually work on the bikes. They manufacture the parts and all this kind of crap, like Hammer Performance, S&S, Andrews Fueling, right? Those kind of people. And I don't buy from the big corporation. You won't even see me in the rallies. I mean, I got enough T-shirts. I don't need any more. But just want to say that these guys that are the corporation, they ruin everything. It's like no matter what we do, whatever we blaze a trail, I don't care what it is. If it's not the motorcycles, it's something else. Somebody else blazes a trail. There's some weasel in there with their little schemes trying to make a dime off of what you did. And you don't get nothing. Sort of like monetization on YouTube, which there is none. So I put this out for free. I didn't mean to go so long, but I could kind of talk pretty long off the top of my hat, And anyway, I just really do like the clubs a lot too. And this stuff, I don't think this offends clubs, but it probably offends other people, but I don't care. Luftwaffe. I wanted to get a tattoo. I don't want to get a tattoo. I never got tattoos. That's another thing. I'm not a biker, right? I don't have a tattoo. I was thinking about getting one with the real thing on the bottom here with the Luftwaffe, but nobody would do it. And I say that's probably a good thing because tattoos are identifiers, man. You got a tattoo like this guy here. It was this guy that had this on his arm like that. How are you going to get away, man? It's like extra facial recognition, So, anyway, that's probably why you see a lot of clubs wearing like full face helmets now, Got that anti-facial recognition face shield on there or something. I don't know what they're doing, Yeah. Anyway, hats off to him, but the $50 million, that guy, the Puma CEO, just leave you with this thought. That Puma CEO, he grabbed a $50 million bonus in stocks, right? $50 million. That was the last one. They got the new one now from, I don't know, the Top Golf, whatever the hell it is. He grabbed $50 million bonus out of Harley Davidson. The Ford CEO, Ford being a company like, I don't know, 10, 20 times bigger than Harley Davidson, he only got half the amount, $25 million. I mean, this is why we got problems. You know, maybe what's going to come out to, and I bet you a lot of these clubs do this already, probably a lot of these bikes got like S&S engines in them and stuff, or Ultima or whatever the hell. You know, they probably don't even have Harley engines anymore. Anyway, my engine's starting to give me, well, right now I don't have too much Harley in there as it is. So, anyway, over and out. Have a nice day. But again, Harley Davidson would not be here if it was not for these guys right here, the quote-unquote outlaw bikers.